of the houses I lived in as a child had a balcony that connected both my mother's bedroom and mine through large glass doors in each room. Next to the balcony were 2 trees, and I often climbed up and down from the balcony using one of them. One night, when I was about 13 years old, my brother and mother weren't home. I was reading in bed with a very dim reading light. Suddenly, I heard something moving in one of the trees outside. This didn't worry me much, since possums and bats were common in our area. I had thin curtains on the glass doors separating my room from the balcony, and the doors faced the street, where the light from the street lamps was always visible through my curtains. A few moments after hearing the rustling in the tree, I saw a shadow slowly move past the doors. I immediately turned off my reading light and froze like a deer in headlights. The shadow was tall, so I knew it wasn't a neighborhood kid or my mother, who was only 5 feet tall. The person moved slowly, creeping as if they were trying not to be noticed. They couldn't likely see into my room, but I could see them clearly, thanks to the streetlights behind them. They moved past my doors and out of sight. I sat there, unable to move or even think about what to do other than stay completely still. Then I heard another sound, the sound of someone trying to open a glass door. They were trying to open my mother's doors to the balcony. I didn't know if she had locked them or not, but I wasn't going to take any chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened intently to what the person was doing. They were still jiggling the glass door handle, but it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt a wave of relief, thinking they couldn't get in and would soon give up and leave. But then I heard light footsteps moving back along the balcony towards my set of glass doors. I saw the shadow stop directly in front of them. Once again I froze. He couldn't see me, but I could see him. I saw the shadow of a hand reach up to my door handle and my heart stopped. Had I locked those doors earlier? I had been out on the balcony earlier. What if I had forgotten to lock them? The seconds before he grabbed the handle felt like an eternity, but thankfully, when he tried to open the door, it didn't budge. It was locked. I sighed with such relief that I worried he might hear it. After this, he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile phone, and the landline was at the other end of the house, but I was too scared to take my eyes off him. I was silently crying and praying that he would just leave. Then I heard him stop moving. He said,
"I could just break the glass, you know."
Before I could even process this threat, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and stop at our property gate. My mum was home, the person on the balcony moved out of sight, and I heard a loud thump as he jumped off the balcony. When my mum came inside, I was hysterical and barely coherent as I tried to tell her what had happened. Eventually, I managed to explain, and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported seeing a truck in the street. This truck matched the description of one that had been reported recently in connection with attempted child abductions near my school, which was just a block away. Before we jump into our second story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Stay tuned for more updates. A couple of weeks before my 19th birthday, I woke up early one morning around 4 a.m. to the sound of someone trying to break down my bedroom door. I had fallen asleep with my light on after coming home, tired from work. When they finally burst into my room, I could at least see what was happening, though it didn't help much at first. There were 2 guys, and one of them immediately attacked me with a hammer. I quickly told them to take whatever they wanted. The other guy started stuffing all my electronics into a backpack. Meanwhile, my mother, who was sleeping down the hall, woke up from the noise and started shouting to find out what was happening. She stayed in her room, at least. At that moment, the two intruders ran out of my room, shutting the door behind them, and headed to my mother's room. My mother managed to hold her door closed for a few seconds, which gave me just enough time to open the safe in my cupboard. I have a 6-digit key code, and I miraculously entered it correctly on the first try. I quickly grabbed my pistol, checked that there was a round in the chamber, and went to open my door to head to my mother's room. As I opened my door, one of the guys turned around and charged at me with the hammer. I fired 2 shots before he reached me, but he still managed to push me back into my room and onto my bed. He held me down and tried to take my pistol, while the other guy began cutting my arm and head with one of my mother's kitchen knives. My mother eventually came to help and managed to take the knife away from the guy who was cutting me. Meanwhile, I held onto my pistol with all my strength because I knew that if they got control of the gun, both my mother and I would be dead. After taking the knife, my mother froze, and the guy got up, grabbed my DVD player, and knocked my TV to the ground. He then hit me over the head with the DVD player. By this time, I had managed to wrestle my gun hand free and shouted for my mother to get out of the way so I could try to fire another shot. She rolled off the bed, and I managed to turn the gun enough to get a shot off into the guy on top of me. That was when they decided to run. They grabbed my bag of electronics on their way out. When the cops arrived, they found a body with 2 gunshot wounds in my garden, just a few meters from the house. There was also a blood trail leading away from the scene, which disappeared at a nearby road. I was in 7th grade and home alone after a half day of school. It was a quiet afternoon until suddenly there was very loud, hard knocking on my back door. Right away, I knew something was wrong because we never have visitors and my father never knocked like that. I froze up in my room, unsure of what to do. I cautiously peeked out of my room, which is right in front of the back door, and suddenly it went quiet. Thinking it was over, I went back into my room. But as soon as I closed my door, I heard the sound of glass shattering. Panic surged through me. I quickly turned off my computer and TV and dived under my bed, trying to stay as quiet as possible. For the next 40 minutes, I lay there, terrified, as I heard the intruders thrashing around in my living room and my parents' bedroom, rummaging through our belongings. Every noise made my heart race, but eventually I heard them leave. During this entire ordeal, I was on the phone with the police, but they thought I was prank calling them. Despite my desperate pleas, it took them 70 minutes to arrive, even though the police station was only 3 streets away from my house. When the police finally came, they investigated and discovered that it was our next-door neighbor who had broken in. He was looking for drug money. We found out that the person who lived in our house before us used to do haircuts at home and also sold weed on the side. The neighbor had assumed there might be money hidden in the house. The neighbor was arrested, and his family moved out a week later. The whole experience was incredibly frightening, and to top it all off, the only thing the intruder took was the lunch money I had left on the counter for the next day. The incident left me shaken and more aware of the potential dangers around me, changing how I felt about being alone at home. If you want to see more of the most frightening horror videos, check out our previous videos and subscribe to be notified of new, terrifying experiences. Until we meet again, be cautious of the supernatural and be careful when navigating through dark and eerie situations.